Hello and welcome back to the Tennent's Men's Premiership and National League highlights. Despite it being one of the more colder match days, things were certainly heating up across the four divisions with some big games and huge results in the fight for the Championship, promotion and relegation. We're starting off our action with the top two in the Premiership as unbeaten Hawick took on Curry Chieftains at Mansfield Park. Your commentator for this one was Andrew Peartree.
An incredible first half for the hosts got underway slowly as Curry initially contained the home pack at Mansfield Park. That was until the 8th minute, when a well-executed line-out fed the backs. Kurt Ford was able to create just enough room for winger Lewis Ferguson to sidestep his way to the line for a try converted by Ford. The set piece set up the second too. Moving the ball wide, Andrew Mitchell was able to second the defence before laying it on a plate for Ethan Riley, before Ford once again added the extras. Down to 14 points and 14 men, Curry were up against it and went further behind when Mitchell created a try of his own, weaving his way over for the score. Another Ford conversion followed before a penalty from the tee as Hawick took a 24-0 lead. With the wind behind them and in their sails, the hosts extended the lead further when Mitchell kicked into unguarded territory, allowing Ronan McKean to race for the ball and then over the line for the bonus point try before the break. And there was still time for a further first half score, but this time it was from Curry's own making. With the ball on their own try line, they allowed Stuart Graham to pounce for Hawick's 5th score of the half. The extras were again supplied by Ford for a whopping 38-0 half-time lead. Playing with the stiff breeze, Curry looked more purposeful in the second half and were rewarded for good approach work with a try by hooker Ryan Stewart from a driven line-out, Hunter kicking the conversion. This was quickly countered by a Hawick try from the hard-working Dalton Redpath, which proved to be the final score in a game.
Well, a big result there for Hawick. At the other side of the table, though, one team that was out of form this season was Musselburgh. It was a huge game for them at Stonyhill as they took on 9th place Heriots Blues as they looked to close the 6-point gap in the fight for survival.
On a cold, muddy day at Stonyhill, it would be Danny Owenson that would give Musselburgh the lead with this penalty. However, that was to be the only points of the first half, as both sides struggled to get any more points on the board, with Heriots also going down to 14 men. However, Graham Wilson would get his first penalty of the day shortly after half-time to make it 3-3. And from a line-out maul, Heriots would get the first and only try of the game, with substitute Danny Deneen being the one to go over the whitewash. Heriots were looking to be ruthless and give Musselburgh nothing from the game, and they tried to do this when Graham Wilson managed to score his second penalty of the day to put them 10 points ahead. However, it was the ever-reliable boot of Danny Owenson that would save Musselburgh a bonus point as he scored his second penalty of the day. However, it would be the Nails that would walk away with the victory at Stonyhill, leaving Musselburgh with all to play for this weekend in order to survive in the Premiership.
Well, that means that Musselburgh will need some big results in the next couple of games. Two of those teams that they will face met at Riverside Park as Jed Forest looked to keep their place in the Premiership for another season as they took on GHA. Your commentator for this one once again was Andrew Pietri.
Even after 5 minutes, it still came against the run of play when GHA opened the scoring, Chris Hyde punishing the hosts for coughing up an offside penalty. But Jed wasted no time in their response, capitalising on a loose ball and surging into the GHA half. Robbie Shiragib and Callum Young popped up with weaving runs that built momentum before fly half Gary Munro found Mason Cullen. The try was no guarantee, but the winger showed excellent feet and power to squeeze into the corner, beating his opposite man. GHA came back up the field through rampaging replacement Mike Ryan, who had had an early entry to the match at the expense of the injured Walker Graham. His carry drew another penalty from the Jed defence, which Hyde duly converted into 3 points. The lead stood for a matter of minutes. Jed seized possession on halfway, fullback Callum Young went quickly from the base of a ruck, leaving the GHA defence trailing, and then placed a pass into the waiting arms of Owen Cranston, who went over to score untouched. Jed's indiscipline cost them again as they allowed GHA into their own territory. Glasgow Warriors academy man Christian Townsend made no mistake in putting the ball into the corner, and hooker Archie Faulkner finished off from the resulting maul. Jed eventually saw reward for their endeavour when more fantastic handling from their talented backline saw Gregor Young throw a smart dummy and ghost through. The covering man did well to stop the galloping Young, but he was able to pop the ball from the floor to Gary Young, who leapt over to give Jed the lead right on the whistle. After an even first half, Jed came out of the sheds with impressive intensity, building slowly through their pack before Aidan Bambrick released Callum Young on the wraparound. Young did well to ride the tackle before his cat flap offload found the on-rushing Cullen, who fixed the despairing Hyde and sent Gregor Young under the sticks. Finlay Scott converted, and Jed's lead was stretched to 11 points. They kept up the pressure in clinical fashion and extended their lead when Clark Skeldon scored a deserved try from close range. Then Bambrick found Cullen, who beat two men with his scorching pace before drawing and feeding Shira Gibb, who went on to score. As darkness closed in, Jed refused to rest on their laurels, and after replacement Rory Marshall was stopped centimetres short, the ball was recycled to Gregor Young, who cantered in for the final try of the match. Scott converted to round off a crushing victory.
We'll turn our attention now away from the fight against relegation and to the battle for fourth place, starting off with Glasgow Hawks, who looked to close the gap on them and Selkirk in fourth as they took on third place Edinburgh Accies in the capital. Joe Anderson commentates on the game from Rayburn Place.
Accies took the lead at Rayburn Place through the boot of fly half Jamie Looms. And Accies then grabbed the first try, working the ball out to the left before Ben Appleson went close. It was Rory Campbell who then went over just a phase later. The home side followed it up with a second try just moments later. After a 5-metre line out, the forwards continued to work their way towards the line before it was prop Clem Lacour who managed to get the ball over. Hawks then got themselves back into the game with a try of their own. It was centre Brendan McGroarty who also finished off from close range. The second half started in much the same way as the first, as Jamie Looms kicked over another penalty. Accies then grabbed themselves a third try as Ben Appleson stabbed through a lovely grubber kick into the left corner. Lewis Wells charged down the resulting clearance kick attempt and had the easy job of diving on the ball over the line. and Accies grabbed themselves the bonus point, with centre Neil Armstrong receiving the ball in the middle of the pitch. His dummy gave him the space to break through the defensive line and dot down next to the posts.
Well, finally back to Selkirk as they hosted reigning champions Mar at Philip Hall, who were looking to close the gap on themselves and the Borders side in 4th place.
As the race for the playoff spot starts to heat up, it was Josh Welsh that would put Selkirk on the board first with this try only just 2 minutes into the game. They extended their lead to 8 points after Aaron McComb scored this penalty. However, he was not to be outdone by Colin Sturgeon, who scored 2 penalties for Mar to make it a 2-point lead for Selkirk at the break. The game burst into life though as Andrew Cochrane went over for the first try of the game to put Selkirk further ahead. However, Mar started to turn the tide, and Connor Bickerstaff went over for their first try of the game. And Scott Bickerstaff would score late on in the corner to secure the 4 points for Mar as they took the win back to Ayrshire and to put pressure on the hosts in 4th place. And so therefore the Premiership table now looks like this. Mar are only 3 points behind Selkirk in 4th place as they look to retain the Premiership title. That win for Jed Forest now sees them in 7th place and secure their spot in the Premiership for another year. GHA dropped down to 9th place and they are only 6 points ahead of Musselburgh. It is a must-win game for both of the bottom two as they meet at Braidholme. Elsewhere, Curry Chieftains will look to get back to winning ways against Selkirk. Glasgow Hawks host the unbeaten Hawick. It is an Edinburgh derby at Golden Acre as Heriots Blues host Edinburgh Accies, and Mar will take on Jed Forest.
And so now to Tennent's men's National 1, and despite starting off the season strongly, Gala have started to slip away from the top of the table. They were looking to get back into the title fight as they took on GHK at Old Annie's Land.
The colour of maroon would be the one to strike first at Old Annie's Land, as Callum Pate was found wide out on the wing to score in the corner for Gala's first try. But on the 6th minute mark, it would be GHK that would hit back with Danny Campbell going over for his first try of the day. And just 4 minutes later, they stunned the Borders team with a try on the 10th minute mark, coming from Paul Henderson after a line-out maul. Another try followed soon, this time for Gala as Liam Scott found the gap to go over. With all tries unconverted, it was level at 10-all. It would take until the 34th minute mark to find the next try, and it would be the home team that would find those points, with standoff Grant Anderson going over. For the first time of the day as well, the conversion was successful to give GHK a 17-10 lead at half time. And after the interval, and despite having an option to go for an easy kick for a penalty, they went over the line for their next try, with Angus Troop firing over the bonus point. Gala could not withstand the GHK pressure, and once again Grant Anderson managed to find Danny Campbell, who would go over for his brace and to give them a 34-10 lead. Kyle Scott managed to bag one last try for Gala as they were on the hunt for a bonus point. However, they could not find all the points that they needed as they walked away empty-handed from Old Annie's Land, and GHK walking away with a 5-point victory. In the other games in Tennent's men's National 1, Dundee Rugby piled more pressure on Stirling County in the hunt for survival as they walked away with the bonus point victory. Highland's promotion chances took a hit this week as they lost 16-7 away to Biggar.
No hands! No hands! Advantage offside! Penalty advantage! Still from penalty advantage! Try there.
The pressure is mounting now on Aberdeen Grammar as they lost 17-35 at home to Melrose, who themselves are keeping pressure on Kelso and Ayr at the top of the table.
Use it, your players trapping them in.
For the West Coast team themselves, it was a trip to the capital as they managed to scrape past Watsonians, who put in a powerful performance but could not come away with the victory. And in the battle between top and bottom of the table, it was Kelso that would walk away with a 29-0 victory over Stewart's Melville, leaving Stewart's Melville now winless in 13 matches. Which leaves the table now looking like this. Kelso now have a point advantage over Ayr as well as a game in hand, while Melrose close the gap between them and top of the table to just 9 points. At the bottom of the table now Stirling County drop down with GHK going up on points difference. Stewart's Melville are now some way off the bottom of the table, 18 points away, with Aberdeen Grammar only 17 points away. It doesn't get any easier for Stewart's Melville as they take on Ayr next weekend. Elsewhere, Gala host Biggar, while Highland are home to Kelso. Dundee Rugby are away to Melrose, while Stirling County and GHK battle it out in the fight against relegation. And also Watsonians host Aberdeen Grammar. In Tennent's men's National 2, it was a low-scoring weekend with Hamilton Bulls and Kirkcaldy as well postponed due to a waterlogged pitch. Preston Lodge could not score any points against Peebles, but Glasgow Accies managed to get the win against Boroughmuir. Cartha Queen's Park came close to their first win of the season, however were pipped to the post by Dumfries Saints. Dumfries Saints now move well up the table into 5th. Cartha Queen's Park and Boroughmuir are both now struggling at the bottom of the table, and Preston Lodge have moved down into the relegation zone. Glasgow Accies now have a 7-point lead over Falkirk, and they'll be looking to increase that even more when the two sides meet this weekend. Elsewhere, Preston Lodge host Cartha Queen's Park, Berwick are taking on Lastwade, and the bottom two meet as Boroughmuir host Hamilton Bulls. Also, Dumfries Saints play Kirkcaldy, and Newton Stewart take on Peebles. The biggest result this weekend in Tennent's Men's National 3 is that Royal High managed to beat Greenock Wanderers to get their first win of the season, winning by just 1 point. It was also a 1-point win for West of Scotland away to Murrayfield Wanderers. Hillhead Jordanhill got the victory over Howe of Fife, and Allen Glens got the win over Perthshire, while Strathmore defeated Orkney. But Gordonian's bonus point victory now puts them 11 points ahead of West of Scotland, and they are unbeaten still at the top of the table. This weekend in Tennent's Men's National 3 there's some great fixtures, and Allen Glens host Royal High and Strathmore travel to top of the table Gordonians. Greenock Wanderers host Hillhead Jordanhill, while Howe of Fife will look to get back to winning ways at home to Murrayfield Wanderers. West of Scotland host the travelling Orkney, and Whitecraigs take on Perthshire.
And so that is it for another weekend of Tennent's Men's Premiership and National League action. What another great week it has been across the 4 divisions, and it's looking to be a very frosty yet fiery weekend ahead for some of our clubs. Be sure to tune in next week where we bring you all the action across the Tennent's Men's Premiership and Tennent's Men's National 1, 2 and 3. We'll see you then.